Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. And as I've mentioned previously, I am doing the 100 book challenge this year. Part of the reason I am doing that is to find amazing books to share with all of you. And so we're going to start off this year with a brand new find I found. I started it last year, at the end of the year, and I finished it up beginning of the year. And it is amazing. It is Dr. Phill McGraw's new book, We've Got Issues. I heard about this through some other podcasters and loved it so much. I got it first through the library, then as an audio, and then a physical copy. And I can't wait to tell you all about it. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. So, as I was saying before, I don't typically buy digital and physical copies for books that I'm reading or get them from the library. I usually don't do that many different ways of acquiring a book. And even more rarely am I reading a book, and as I'm reading it, I'm thinking of lists of people that I want to recommend it to or buy it for. Because I just read a lot of books, and not everyone has the same interest or reading preferences. That said, I experienced that with this book. As I was going through, there were quite a few times where I would encounter something. I'm like, oh, I would want to share this with that person. Oh, this person would love that. And I want to just break down why. So we're going to start with some basics, be non-spoilery ish, and then I'll go into more specifics later on. But here are some reasons why I really loved this book. Now, there are topics that have been in the media or very much in the cultural zeitgeist that people are just talking about a lot lately. Things of cultural concern and significance currently in society, specifically in the United States. And more than once, I've been having conversations with people who I respect, but we see those topics differently. And I've been trying to communicate why I feel the way I feel and why I think the way I think about said topic. And I've not always felt like I've put those ideas or opinions or feelings of mine in the best or clearest or most concise way. But as I was reading through this, I found myself going, oh, that's what I wanted to say. Oh, that's how I wanted to phrase it. Yes, he hit the nail on the head. And I found that he was able to express a lot of these thoughts and ideas and concepts that I've had in my head floating around for a couple of years now, and do it in a way that was straightforward, clear, concise, and understandable and accessible in general. And that leads me into the next part. He explains things really, really, really well. I reviewed Jordan Peterson's book last year. Love Jordan Peterson's work. He's got a brilliant mind, and a lot of the concepts that he covers and that I've read in a lot of other books and even encountered in this book are concepts that I was first introduced to when I was getting my degree in family life science. But something I find is that there are times where individuals in my social science field get incredibly clinical. And for those of us who are part of the field, who've got a background, who understand the vocabulary and terminology and all that, it, it's not a huge deal. But for the average person who may not know all the vernacular, it can become less accessible or a little bit more archaic. And one of the things I absolutely love that he does, Dr. Phill, in this book, is he breaks it down to the just common concepts or simple to understand ideas that are generally accessible to the average person who doesn't have a degree in this already. And so, for that reason, I really love this book. It is just really down to earth. So, that said, let me get into some specific parts of the book that I genuinely enjoyed and want to share with you. Now, I'm not going to share even a tenth of everything. I would basically just have to read you the book because I honestly can say there are very, 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 very few parts of this book that I wasn't completely engaged and just wanting to take notes and highlight. I basically would just highlight the entire book. There were a few parts where I'm like, "Okay, yeah, but that was very rare. Very, very rare. So he goes in to make some statements, and one of them, the first one, I'm covering these in order they're found in the book, not in order of importance, in my opinion. One of the first things he brings up in the book that I was just nodding along with was the whole trigger warning concept. And that trigger warnings, and I believe this too, are actually more detrimental than helpful. He says, and I'm going to just quote him directly from the section. To ease you into that greater resilience, I need to offer a trigger warning. The trigger warning is this. Trigger warnings have become the most unadulterated load of BS that you may ever come across. At best, they are ineffective, and at worst, the warnings themselves are as traumatic as any content that they could ever warn you about. And the very fact of their existence reflects two seriously unhealthy trends that are being pushed so hard by some factions that it is beyond ridiculous. And he goes in to talk about trigger warnings. And basically the whole gist is that we need to just stop with the whole trigger warning crap and just be frank about, okay, hey, we're going to be covering some tough subjects and yeah, this is what we're covering. And I do feel like it's important to let people know, hey, this is children and family friendly. This is more mature adult conversations, grown up conversations. And that's fine. That's just being matter of fact about what you're discussing. It's not a trigger warning. But he's right. When you say trigger warning, you're automatically implying to your audience that this is something they should get emotional about, that this is something that they should be offended by or traumatized by or whatever. And that immediately gets them thinking about this in an emotionally reactive way and not looking at it as a rational or pragmatic subject. So I agree with him on that. There's a lot more to it than that. That is just breezing over the top of it. The next one is we need to stop rewriting books. And he talks about this that we're trying to be so sensitive and understanding that we're rewriting books and we're losing those contexts. I am 100% on board with this concept. Personally, I remember back when I was in high school and we were reading Fahrenheit 451. And in Fahrenheit 451, they're talking about how that this book was offensive to this person and this offense was like, and so that nobody wouldn't be offended, we're just going to get rid of all the books. And then that's the explanation one of the characters is giving in Fahrenheit 451. Well, one of the groups that they were saying that was offended by books, they named my church. And I was offended that they were saying my church were, easily offended. And I went to my one of my teachers who was a member of the same church, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm not cool with this." And he's like, "That's the exact point he's making. You're being offended by them saying people who are religious sometimes get offended." Like, do you even see you're making his point? If you don't like something, if you don't feel like something is appropriate, don't read it. Don't share it with your kids. Don't recommend it to a friend. Agree to disagree. Move on. And we don't need to censor things. There are books that I genuinely don't enjoy. We don't have them in our house by and large. We've got a few of them, but not a lot of them because I don't enjoy them. I tend to buy the books that I enjoy and love for my children. I also have a lot of physical books because of this reason. I tend to have older copies of books for this reason. I don't think we should be censoring books. If you have an issue with a book, don't buy it. And now that's completely separate from books in schools. If it's not appropriate for kids, then it shouldn't be in a school, and that's a different story. Instead of censoring it so that you can then put it in a school, just don't have it in the school anyway. And you know what? If a parent genuinely feels their child needs to be exposed to that book, great. The parent can be in charge of that. The school should not be making that decision. And in that regards, there was actually a couple times where we were reading books in school that I had issues with. And one of them, I approached the teacher and I said, for this, and this reason, I don't feel comfortable reading this book. Can I have an alternate assignment? And I worked with my teacher and the administrator, and we came up with a book that was of an equally high level of literary excellence and covered similar themes and topics and history. And I read that and did extra assignments on that above and beyond what my classmates were doing because I couldn't participate in the classroom discussions in place of reading that book that I was not comfortable with. And I'm super grateful for a wonderful teacher and administration that accommodated me in that way. And I don't feel like I lost anything by doing that. I feel like I had the ability to look for and explore similar themes in a different capacity. So that's a lot for that topic. Again, I could talk for hours on these things. The next is being yourself on purpose. And he makes a point on this one, and I'm going to just skip ahead to that. I'm going to quote him directly again because I feel like it's worth it. And he says, and I want to make sure that you're being who you are on purpose, which means understanding and resisting the ways that you might be programmed. And he talks about deprogramming yourselves and the whole concept of the emperor's new clothes and making the choices you make consciously, not just doing something because people are going to make you feel like you're one of the group or anything like that for following along. And he gives a really fabulous list. I'm not going to read it all to you. That has been compiled by deprogrammers or the people who deprogram cultists, and it's warning signs, things to look for. When in regards to different organizations you might be dealing with. Maybe it's a political party, maybe it's a social group, maybe it's just a group of friends. Who knows? Maybe it's where you're getting your information from. But looking at these different sources, maybe it's your social media, and realizing, are these people an unhealthy source? And I really think that's fabulous. Everyone should go and look at his list on that one. The other thing is he talks about parenting. And again, I love the comments he makes about parenting. And he gives a challenge that I genuinely would recommend to anyone. And it's a fabulous, fabulous challenge. It is something he's done himself. So he said, be proactive in leading your family and in supporting America. You can start by writing down 5 things that you have carried forward from your childhood that you think are positive, and 5 things that you've carried forward that you think are negative. The negative just go on your to-do list. And he talks about being proactive about those things, recognizing that we all need a change. We all have things we can improve on. Nobody is perfect. And so it's okay. Let's give each other grace. Let's be understanding. Let's recognize that. But let's also be proactive. Instead of making excuses, let's do something about it. And he gives some examples from his own family on good things and bad things that he wanted to keep or change. And I think that's fabulous. As a parent, I completely agree with that. And that's actually an assignment one of my professors gave me in college. So I think it's really awesome advice in regards to that. He he does like second half of his book almost is a list of 10 working principles for a healthy society. And I'm just going to read these principles in general and then share one point from those principles. But there are so many amazing just concepts and nuggets of wisdom and practical applications that I really suggest you just get the book and read through it yourself. So, the 10 working principles for a healthy society are, according to him, number one, be who you are on purpose. Number two, focus on solving problems rather than winning arguments. Number three, don't reward bad behavior or support. Number four, measure all actions based on results and all thoughts based on reality. Number five, consciously choose which voices in your life deserve the most attention. Number six, do not silent, no, sorry, number six, do not stay silent so others can remain comfortable. Number seven, actively live and support a meritocracy. Number eight, identify and build your consequential knowledge. Number nine, work hard to understand the ways others see things. Number 10, treat yourself and others with dignity and respect. These are fabulous. This whole section is fabulous. I could, like I said, part of me just wants to read you the whole thing because it's amazing. But I'm going to share with you one of the things from one of those points, and it's actually focus on solving problems rather than winning arguments. And in here, he gives an example of what is clinically called active listening. Now, I know the term active listening because of my degree. Most people won't know that term. So instead of saying you should use active listening, he goes in and models it for you. So, active listening is a way to actually listen to and process the information of the person you are speaking to. So, when you are talking to someone who you have a differing perspective with, then you can employ this as a better way to actually understand them and communicate more effectively. And here it goes. He talks about they will welcome your point of view and listen, actively listen. And then he goes into active listening. So he actually does say active listening. I missed that part. That means they'll be able to reflect your position back to you automatically. They might say something like, so if I'm hearing you correctly, your position is, and then give a fair statement of it. And then say, and you feel that way because, and give a fair statement of your motivations. So that is an example of active listening that he gives in the book. And like I said, this book is just a fabulous resource for anybody who is looking for ways to improve their relationships, to be a better communicator, to just yeah, I just wish I could buy a copy for everyone and everyone would read it. But I'm not a millionaire and I can't make people read books. So I'm at least going to tell you why I love it. Another thing that I want to talk about that he has is he did polls on certain topics for each one of these chapters. He polled his listeners and people on social media to get their perspectives on different subjects. And he gives you the poll question at the beginning, and then he gives you the data from his polls at the end. And I really love that. I love a lot of the things he's done in here. And he covers a lot of research. He's very, very factual. He tries to be very professional in the way he addresses all of these things and really compassionate because some of the subjects he touches on are ones that can be rather high emotion for individuals. So, in my conclusion, the one thing I really have noticed is that of all the quote unquote self help books that I find myself recommending over and over to people or buying copies and gifting over and over, They have the same timeless lessons and advice, and this book is no exception. They talk about what a win-win is and how to seek to understand and then to be understood, and how to be purposeful about your life. And the just all of these wonderful little nuggets, all of these life-changing concepts, beginning with the end in mind, having priorities, making sure that your priorities match what you actually want from life. And if I can take away anything from this book and give it to you, it's that you have the ability to make a difference in your life, that you don't have to be a passive participant in your life, and that if you notice there's changes you want to make, you can do it. This is a fabulous resource. I would recommend it to everyone. It is honestly a 10 out of 10 in my book, and I don't give a lot of 10 out of 10s. So, um, that said, I am really excited for a lot of the stuff that's coming up this year with the podcast. This book is no exception. I have come to notice, as I said before, that the episodes that get the best responses are interviews and reviews and things like that. So I'm going to be doing more of those things for you guys. And that said, if you know anybody who is interested in talking about their experience as a military service member or spouse, as a veteran or current military, or they have resources that would be beneficial to the military community, please reach out, let me know. I will be putting together some panels to discuss topics that I think are pertinent. I will continue to try to give pointers on how to best navigate the craziness of military life. And I don't think that the changes are going to stop. I feel like change is just something we deal with all the time in the military. So there will be continually be opportunities for me to share pointers on those sorts of things with you all. That said, I am still working on that one project of the research information that I did. I'm hoping to get the article written and out as soon as possible. Yeah, that's where we're at with the podcast. I really am grateful for all your feedback. If there is another book that you would like me to review, a read and review, please send it my way. And for analytics' sake, and so that this podcast can be as accessible as possible to the most people as possible, and just do good, please like, share, subscribe. I appreciate it, and I appreciate hearing from you. As always, let's do our very best to be the good that we want to see in the world. And I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.